And we're back behind the woodshed. We got power. Well, that was a weird last week. In fact, since then, it's been weird. No, I wasn't cut off. At least I don't think the NSA came out and knocked the tree over that took our power out last week. Not so sure about what happened after with all the electronics. But anyway, we had power down last week. Came on right after the broadcast started. Wouldn't have had time to restart up and get it. I didn't want to confuse anybody. And so, in other words, after power comes on, you got to go check all your appliances. I just want to remind you about this. Depending on how your power goes out, you could lose capacitors in your starting circuits for your refrigerators and things. You want to make sure you get those are all not taken out. We eventually did have some power, some equipment taken out. So I've been down for most of the week off the internet. Horrors, right? But anyway, it gave me a lot of time to do some things to get ready for the winter as it's coming on. Despite the crickets, I think the crickets are immune even to the cold now. It's serious, folks. What's going on? I told you they were going to be accelerating. It's last week I got cut off to be able to tell you more. It's the ongoing saga of the decline and a slide into the stinking abyss the United States of America is doing, and the people, now the crickets, are allowing. New Obama czar will hunt right-wing extremists. We've heard this before, but now it's coming on again. They've actually got a process and a program. As we keep bringing, I tell you, the war of battlefield America was no joke. We'll look over and see the diabolical nature of what's going on in the United States doing over in the Middle East. It's a reflection, it's a mirror here. What I find interesting about this, and if we go back to the MIAC report, we heard that there was lots of extremists that might be happening that they might be able to be looking at. So then everybody started seeing that about anybody with a belief system would become a terrorist. But now they're focusing, this Obama czar is going to hunt down right-wing extremists. Apparently, this one-sided view doesn't care about left-wing extremists. As this flying turkey spins out of control, whatever political notion is sitting in the seat of decision, or at least the one that we feel outwardly, because the one, the seat of decision is actually the one you don't see. And this is what you should be careful of. This seat of decision wants to go after right wings. The next guy may want to go after left wings. The point is they're going to be going after the whole body of the people, and that'll be the crickets being destroyed. And a lot of those crickets will applaud it, thinking that they're okay. But Obama czar will hunt right-wing extremists. The thing I just look at this is I want to remind you, I could see this guy in Obama coming because the symbol that he was neither black nor white. He was not really constitutional. He wasn't actually. There was a question around everything that he did that was factual. Nothing was going to be identifiable. I told you that was the roll-down effect, the symbolism of history coming in. Not necessarily started by Lincoln, but you could see it in Lincoln. You could then see it in Roosevelt, and you could see it now coagulating in this guy Obama. The oxymoron. This right-wing extremists now, we're hearing there's a program that the new new Attorney General is now fabricating in the DOJ, Department of Justice, to go after sovereign citizens, as we've been told. And I've told you that's an oxymoron. But this is what Obama was. But Obama is a hypocrisy. He's an oxymoron. The symbol of Obama. Even if everything we knew about him was true, the symbol that I told you was coming way back in, I don't know, 2009 or something, when I first got him broadcasting, I said, watch out, this guy's somebody in history. I mean, really history. He brings in, if I can say, an age of a new age. He's the symbol of this guy, and this guy was nobody at the time. But he's an oxymoron himself, and heavy on the moron. But not necessarily so, because they're playing this so well that the people are really morons. But Obama, how do you have a czar in America the free? And how Americans didn't stand up against this title of a czar, an officer of a pre-Bolshevik revolution kingdom, essentially. Foreign to the American way. So posed. comes into a seat of government. They've done these czars now for years. Well, here's the new one, but they're after only right-wing extremists. And they're coming after the right-wing extremists, one of which identifies themselves as the oxymoron sovereign citizen. Why oxymoron? Because you're not sovereign if you're a citizen. Sovereignty is a very interesting absolutism. And so, before we all think about what we think we have to know, we have to really do a lot more study behind that. But this guy, Obama, comes on, and he's done nothing but, it perpetuates itself out of the lie. You see, what one hand does, the other appears to be what one hand is doing, the other doesn't know about. And in fact, again, you just see that's the elements of the tool being used against all of us. But it's on in force now. They're actually launching, they say, this program. This is some of the stuff I didn't get to last week, and boy, the news has just expanded. I don't even know if I'm ever going to get down with my tabs. There's so much to talk about now, and it's coming so fast, and there just isn't really any more time to expose it. And I think the more I look at this, I'm having to come to terms with being overwhelmed by there's just so much after us. I'm wondering why no one's responding to it. I can't keep up with it all. It's also self-evident as well. But there's not really that many people responding, but this comes. I told you it was coming quickly. Now that the DOJ now launches a strong cities network to strengthen community resilience against violent extremism. Remember, this community and resilience is the standard of the UN. Okay? And right off the DOJ website, and Strong Cities is another, so Strong Cities network. Strong Cities. This has to do with coming from the UN agenda. And you'd think, well, how does the United States of government even engage with that? And I've been telling you how all this time. It's actually the whole United States is subsumed into sustainable development. I've told you this is a big, big deal. It's cross-cutting. They say cross-cutting across all of society. And right in off the DOJ, if you wanted any more proof, that this is this in our face and this serious, this international imposition. Just go read it from their own paperwork. Right off the DOJ, it says launch of Strong Cities networks to strengthen community resilience against violent extremism. The community they're talking about is them. Their resilience is their ability to adapt and respond. And this is coming from the United States government offices. Now remember, you have to understand, what underpins this, the lawsuit of Jefferson Mining District sued Sustainable Development in the state of Oregon. And it sued in a very particular way an injunction, which is able to attack collaterally anything that aids and abets that in that state, which ends up going back in through the federal grant system. And the university system is tied into it in Oregon. That also you'll see replicated throughout the nation. That we back to Washington through the EPA Solutions Network. That is supporting and promoting and funding a lot of this, what we see in sustainable development. It comes through many channels, but this is one we found. Transportation is another very large one. That the federal government itself has already bought in. This is the public buy-in, is this government buy-in into this condition, which now attacks the people who are going to be against it. That they're focusing on what they call extremism, violent extremism. They just put a term on it in order to capture your mind, like they're doing something noble. When in fact what this is they're going against anybody that will ever be against you. And I'm just not going to read the whole thing. Don't have enough time. Not that I want to rush this as well. I want to be careful to gauge myself and about how we do this. There's a lot of information. I'm trying to bring you the evidence of the fact of the stinking abyss is on us, folks. We're in it. We've been in it, actually. And it may be the slippery slope we cannot stop slipping to the bottom of. It all takes your energy now to get out. The Strong Cities, and this is out of the center of the document. Again, they don't just tell you right up front on the title that it's a UN. You got to go to the middle or just beyond the middle of a document. As I told you, when you read human rights, it's not a good thing. And the reason why it's not a good thing, notwithstanding there's no acknowledgement of anything outside of humanism or man-made things to control other men. There's nothing in the, if I should say, the sovereignty of ecclesiastical power of a sovereign. There's none of that in this. It's a refabricated religion. Humanism is a fabricated religion. But inside this document, they say, just about every other document, halfway or 2/3 through, they'll tell you all your whole life, the controls, the regulations, for as rosy as they sound, it is going to be for you, is all subject to them, those in the seat of decision. Here it is, right off the DOJ's website, the Strong Cities Network. And again, I wanted to tie this in last week. I didn't get to go, so I hope you can remember the week before. I'm trying to do a conversation straight. As we went through the Pope, I had to drop everything. We picked that up. I wanted to explain all this to you. I wanted to say, here it comes. Here's how it's coming. It's coming quick. The bum's rush is on. I told you all that. Well, it wasn't even a day after I think I stopped the Sunday before. This comes out. And then I couldn't get to you. So I wanted to tie this. My broadcasts right now are pretty consistent, and they're I know they're almost boringly consistent, but they're very important information. Evidence, folks. This is not my opinion. This has been honest for a long time, and here's the evidence. It's honest now. They're actually working it. In the DOJ discussion, it says Strong Cities Network, or the SCN, which launches September 29th at the United Nations. This is the United States Department of Justice speaking about this. The Strong Cities Network, which launches September 29th at the United Nations, will empower municipal bodies to fill this gap while working the civil society and safeguarding the rights of local citizens and communities against this thing they call violent extremism. It's implemented by and through the UN. If you thought the United States government district was independent, autonomous, and thinking, looking out for you, here's the evidence, again, right from the Department of Justice, that ain't so. And guess what? This is exactly what the responses we're getting as we now move through this lawsuit that exposed sustainable development as the felony, really a treason inside the country. It's not a treason when the Pope did it, because he has no allegiance to the United States. He's just looking out for his own. But when it's done inside the United States, it becomes the treason. That when we identified that in the BLM and sent a show cause request, the answer to us wasn't, "Hey, we see a felony potentially going on. Let's see your evidence." It's no, we don't recognize that you have the authority to do what you're going to do, and we're going to tamper and intimidate and victimize you by sending our Guido, our organized crime enforcer in the FBI, to come intimidate you. We already have the answer to what the DOJ is willing to do to people that try to stand up to literally just enforce the law. There is no law, folks. I've been telling you this. And I didn't want to see this day where with a foot race meant that they actually got to the point where they wouldn't recognize law before we did. But I told you that was the NDAA memo. They said it way back then when I went to crickets, because the nation went to crickets. I went to crickets. The opening broadcast eliminated my whole open and anything else I wanted to do. Silence from the people is the victory that's going to come upon the one who just imposed this whole thing against us. It is now admitted. It's coming out of the UN, and they're coming after anything they believe, anyone they believe, or can fabricate to be something contrary to this agenda inside the United States government without treaty. I don't know why that shouldn't bother anybody, but it doesn't seem to bother lots of people. When we went through the NDAA and the memo and it said they went extrajudicial, folks, I told you, that's it. Your country's done. Now, that's the organized, established understanding and anticipation of following law. That's not your belief that you have a place that is protected in law. It will be the people asserting the law that's inherent in the people that maintains the law. But I hear crickets. Again, I'm only speaking in the general. For all y'all that are stepping up and doing what you can, thank you very much. More power to us. I hope I'm part of that. I just put myself there immediately. But this launched out of the United Nations, folks. And this is what the DOJ, understand, the DOJ is going to implement a United Nations program of action. And the cities, as I told you before, it's already in the states, it's already in the counties, it's already in the cities. The infrastructure they built was in the law, the legal, actually. The law they're denouncing. So the law really regards property. There's no need for the law without regard for property. So this is the importance of why we move to law, the objective basis that when someone comes against you or contract, if you're a violation in contract, violation agreement, violation in oath, a violation in any kind of a generally understood acceptance, that law, so-called, makes the guideline that everybody's going to be able to work from, because we've found out that we're not so moral beings. Again, as I told you, the Cain versus Abel told me a lot. If brother will kill brother for a failed action of responsibility of the one that did the killing, and blame the innocent party, we are a fallen people that needs our own guidance at least, so that we can all look at a piece of paper, the black and white, and say, okay, that's what we all agreed to. Because some of us are too stupid and too immoral to do it right. We have to have some basis from which we can, if you can say the word, justify an action to protect ourselves, that we don't reduce ourselves into that animalistic sense immediately. We call that civilized, although civilization is an interesting problem. It's where they said anybody not within a special society was a heathen. And if you weren't brought into that, you were the heathen. And to be brought under the rules and regulations was to civilize you. And think about that. That's where we get the word I told you long ago about your franchise, your voting. Your franchise is the imposition, the removal of being free and putting within a constraint, a framework, a range of motion from which you act. That's what this system did. They yanked you in. If you didn't want to come in, they told you were a heathen, and they killed you. If you then came in to do that and take that benefit, you were then imposed into a freedom, a liberty. Freedom and liberty are not being free. They certainly can't be sovereign. But anyway, I've been through all this. This is now, you're seeing the vice coming, the press is coming down now, right out of the DOJ. Nobody's opinion needs to be had here. Now, and I didn't get it to this to last week, but someone else has, and I just finding out he's in worldtruth.org. He's put together a nice little page. You can look at it yourself. All aboard the Crazy Train Part 2, UN Agenda, the Strong Cities Network, will be used against the American population. Generally, the information looks really, really, really good. I looked at some of it last night. He does some videos. This is Nathaniel Kemp, I believe, if I have that correct. And he's put together a whole lot of stuff for you to visit on this. And I think it's important to see all the things that can be brought together to understand how important it is, what they call the multi-dimensional attack you're under. That maybe most of you won't, who doesn't really want to get engaged. But some of those that you really want to, I think Nathaniel does a great job pulling some stuff together. And this is I looked at this and said, boy, I wish we had more people that would pull information together, that we can synthesize a more focused attack, focused information, intelligence, so that we can turn around and know where to go look. Because in the cities, see, the local cities are where the power is. I told you this is going to be the urban rural divide was an invention that the urbanites, what the academia will create in as urbanites is going to be the central city of control, and the rest of the countryside will be called rural. The word rural is a demeaning term. It doesn't mean countryside. It's a demeaning term. Urban and rural, and the urban is the kingdom. It's the city-state that works from the vast countryside deemed rural, turning all those productive people into serfs. This is what our independent studies have researched, found out through Jefferson Mining District doing coordination. We use this knowledge to take out and stop a new university getting a whole curriculum that would teach a whole new set of people, new students, all this to enforce. Literally stopped it dead in its tracks. And all we did was we brought the law. We brought that their urban-rural system, their three-legged stool cannot fit in a four-dimensional position. That's all we did. We said, you violated the idea, the requirement in the country, the United States of America, the only nation to have done this, to make actually production the fourth leg of support in the government, for the nation, the people actually. And that was tied to soil possession, not by deed, by conveyance grant. That and the records that made that, and the law that recognized those records that gave people the exclusive possession and use of their own land, not by deed, by the patent, not by sale, by the grant and the assignment, was made the difference in the world for us, that we've abandoned, that this system eliminates by making it look like commerce, that they've thrown that whole thing off now, and they admit they're after your production, as I read it from the transformation document. But I'll have a link in the post-production, when I do post-production, put the Blogcaster page together. Again, my links I come from are there for all of you that want to see how this works. See the evidence for yourself. Take a copy. Put it in your bag of discussion. Take in your bag of proof. Walk it into your cities. Walk it into your counties, your commissions. You've got to talk to the local officials. You've got to explain that the position that they're taking, because most of them are, you'll hear it. You sit down and do your intelligence about who you're dealing with first, as I've told you. But when you finally go to terms with this, you say the positions you're taking are contrary to the laws of this nation, contrary to the United States Constitution, contrary to the state constitution, and that you need to change because that's a fiduciary breach for your duties to not trespass on this, and in the case of a county to protect it, not just trespass, but in the first instance to have protected it. That if we don't step up right now, it's very difficult, very difficult. And as we were talking about the Jefferson Mining District, had our monthly meeting. At one level, I'm so frustrated, and so I don't know what it is. I don't even know what my emotion is. I don't even know if it's emotion. I'm so disfrustrated. And then at the other part, I'm so driven and excited because we're that close. We're that close to people just understanding what's happened and denouncing it, and then going back to what we were supposed to be doing. But it has to happen at the local level, because you see the feds are already bought. The syndicate, the organized crime has now breached the walls, the borders of the United States of America. It did it a long while ago. Now it's not silent. So I'm gonna give you a link for Nathaniel's work. You can see his videos. Actually, a couple. If you go to his, I think he's got a YouTube page. I was looking at. So much going on, I don't even recognize it right now. It's just so much in my face that I think he had some videos, and I think he's got neat insights. And again, everyone, for all of us, you get the information, go research it yourself. But he'll put you on an interesting track. He conglomerated a lot of information together that you can put together, see if it's valuable to you, see if it makes sense to you. And be one of us that's just trying to get the word out. And then for myself, be one of those that steps out where you think you can. Don't be bashful about stepping out to protect yourself, because no one else is going to do it. That we have another story that I was going to bring up that I did not Nathaniel's work, but going on over to a story that I was going to just discuss and then move on from, was that it was already, again, this is coming after. This news comes after and brings regurgitated, as if it's regurgitated. It's already been in front of us, that we never saw it. It just kind of passed as a story, that the infrastructure was already in place back in 2011. Local governments take the lead on the climate. Now understand, forget about climate change as an argument. It's not. It's the tool of destruction. And they don't care that they're lying. They don't care that their science is not. Again, science is a methodology. It's a philosophy, but it's missing something. It's missing something. As I was telling you, it's missing all that it doesn't understand. It's missing what its instruments can't measure. It's missing what's not material but may be there. The quickest evidence I can imagine is, as I've said before, is the frequency of light. Our eyes only have rods that collect so much certain types of energy. We call that the visible spectrum of light. Electromagnetic energy, I suppose, is better, more accurate. What our eyes don't pick up is not the whole amount of energy that's out there, and we can see that in the infrared or the ultraviolet. At some point, our eyes can't see energy that's there. It can't see gamma radiation. It can't see any radiation above, just on the edge of infrared. My eyes used to be able to see a bit of infrared. In fact, I used it as a photographer. I used that. It's very subtle, but there's a certain way to take some photo. I could tell that there's ways light works. That if you keyed into certain light, you can actually make better photographs. I was very fascinated about that. Well, I don't know if I do that anymore, and I haven't done photography for decades, so I don't know if it's still with me. But, the muscle that you don't exercise becomes atrophied. That's why my bottom may be so big. But anyway, that's not a muscle, is it? Well, maybe it is. Maybe not anymore. The point being that we have capacity, we have capability, and our eyes can only see a narrow section of the narrow section of electromagnetic energy, the rest of which, unless we could cognize sensors to measure it, we wouldn't know it was there. That's the thing that's outside of science. Anything that our sensors can't measure is outside of science. It doesn't exist. Even the things our eyes can see doesn't exist underneath this system of climate IPCC definition. The sun does not exist. To show you how insane this thing has gotten. Back in 2011, we were told what was coming, that local governments would take the lead on climate. Now, what we heard before the DOJ was that it's against violent extremism. But they're going to define anybody who's not agreeable to climate change, and really more the process of the technocracy behind it for the tools to keep you in control under a false carbon market. All that's really sitting here. You will be considered the extremist. Remember, they've already told us you are a heretic. And I haven't got to it. They got plenty of down the tabs. I've got plenty of evidence that you're hearing it over and over. They're wanting to call out. They're going to make it illegal to be a denier. You're going to be considered a mental patient. You're going to be put in jail over it. This is honest. And the DOJ, this is the important part of this. The DOJ is with that. The DOJ is the Guido of the organized criminal. They have all the knee breakers, many levels of knee breakers. And if you don't start taking this serious, your knees will get broke. But 2011, the following excerpts are from Local Action. Local Action. Become vocal local. Remember, William Roberts was saying it too. He said his was a race decision too. We better get there before they do. They're already there. 2011, local governments will take action, lead on climate. What does the DOJ say? Yeah, we're going to go ahead and 4 years later, we're actually going to launch a strong cities network, which is going to impose this whole thing. Do you think this was in plan, folks? I hope you see that it was. The New Paradigm in Climate Change Policy was a book that was written that was talked to, making excerpts from this that you can read from, where local government is going to be the tip of the spear for controlling you. And why I've been saying, and this is not because of this, we were saying it a long time ago, you need to get in there in your governments because that's what's going to come after you. You're going to find, again, they do it in the fees. In your utility bill, they put fees that they can't make taxes on because they need to get your permission on taxes, and then they persuade the people to take taxes on themselves because they need to meet this fabricated debt, this mortgage against your existence. By those that are denying the actual science of your existence too. Understand? They have a blinder to nature. While the oxymoron here, this is like the unqualified one, the oxymoron, they deny nature, though they claim to protect it. They deny the existence of the sun, though they claim to protect nature, and that they imply that nature can function without the sun. I'm just paraphrasing the definition. I've got a friend working on this himself, where he's identifying the specificity. I said, you got to go look at what the definition for this climate change is. You're going to find out it's not what everybody's been thinking about. And he read it back, and I said, you see, the first couple words are telling you this is just a relative statistical ratio. Climate change is a relative statistical, a bean counter fabrication. Think about that. All this other stuff is fluff. What the definition says is this is just a statistical definition. So your whole life is being pressed over this notion. It's never been proven, never been checked, never been even checked to be applicable at all. Whether or not it could be shown as statistically correct. Is it applicable? And my observation is, well, if you're going to deny the sun, I don't think so. So this is coming to a city near you. It's already in the cities. It's in the counties. I see it in all. There's very few people in the seats of decisions, the counselors, the commissioners, whatever you want to call it, the bureaucrats. Very few that haven't bought this Kool-Aid. Very few. And the few that have it, and we can talk to, and we can explain this, make a world of difference in stopping it. Slowing it up for sure, and stopping it. And now our action is to try and in places, as we're identifying as this really the evidence I tell you about. We bring to the people. We say, here's the evidence of its effect. Don't think it's our opinion. The people that have not drunk the Kool-Aid put even more effort to stop it. And so now we're working to get those people, though they're in the seats of decision, to turn it around. And I say this has been a many-year process, and this is why I say the sooner you all jump in to defend yourself, the better. And if you can't figure that out for yourself to do it, but you're interested to defend you for your future, your little ones, that future generations they talk about they're going to destroy, that's what you're working for, essentially. Your friends' families, your friends' sons and daughters, that's what you'll be working to protect, because they're not capable at this point. There's a sense, there's an inner spirit. That's the spirit that the science won't recognize. That thing that science can't measure still sits there. I don't know if you know this, and I just was reminded about this. That was what I've been telling you. There's these powers that are in sovereigns. One of the powers is the power of the ecclesiastical. If you don't have that, you're not a full sovereign. Think about that. So this is what this system does. It takes out this ecclesiastic side by claiming to be a religion based on science. These people are very, very sharp. But when you see the man's perception of how he orders the reality, and keep those things in your mind, like what the jurisdictions of a sovereign are. And you realize that they're being played one off of another. Once you see that, you can just listen to the words. You can see, for myself, this is partly how I can see some of this. I know exactly what they're doing. I don't know exactly what they're doing it for, but I know that they're doing it. And I know that if you're doing that, then you're in an attack. You're attacking somebody for something. As I've told you, just in this case, a political jurisdiction is one recognized jurisdiction in a complete sovereign, the subject matter of which was the only reason why the United States government got established, but used the economic jurisdiction of a sovereign as a servitude, obligation, and duty. You see that in Article 6 of the Constitution itself. Now, I'm not talking about the Bill of Rights. So, under Article 6, you have an evidence of debt and engagements prior in commerce, which was the servitude of the economic power of a sovereign used against the establishment of the political power. And I told you that means you can't be sovereign, actually, and that means that there's some other one out there that's controlling that. And how you know that? You go to the economic power, and you say it's a servitude, and you see who it was, and you'll find out that there's an unpaid debt way back when. It keeps going, and continued commercial servitudes by international compact, which are tied to others that you don't know about. But this whole system works by keeping track of you. And it's in the cities, it's right down to your computer, and this is where they got it, right down to your utility bills. You pay for all this stuff through your fees, not taxes, but fees. There's a distinction. It's an interesting distinction. I guess I should give you one part of it. Taxes are assessed for what the common weal has to address because of the existence of a certain activity. In other words, let's put it this way, a motor vehicle, a machine of commerce upon the common highway, utilizes a much larger machine which can degrade the roadway, the tax for which is to be used to repair the excess wear made by that use. That's a tax. A fee is just a fee for a service. So there's a distinction. You need to look very carefully at what they do. What they're doing is they're causing these impositions through climate change and all this other data collection, these systems, these revenue enhancement systems, to be benefits to you as a service of the corporation of the county or the city or the regional government or whomever decide, whatever it comes forward to claim to be doing good for you. That they need data is the whole point. They need to keep track of y'all. I've been telling you about that. Side Weapons Require at Wars way back when gave us the heads up about that, why it's on my Blogcaster page for you to go read. No different than you should read the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, and maybe you should even go back and see the Libra Code, because that's what you're under, this martial law that everyone wants to, the big anti-alternative media wants to say our martial law is coming. No, folks, you've been living under it for about ever. I don't think there's anybody under the voice that listens to my voice and will listen to my voice that isn't going to be under martial law. How do you know that? Their deeds tell you that. And folks, I just say the word deeds again. What I say, don't take your property, don't acknowledge there's a deed on it. You got to do it by patent. The deeds, you refile as a deed, you come underneath that servitude, don't you? The deeds tell you. Their deeds, their action, the action, not the words, but the action tells you what the proof is. And then there's other proofs I've been through. But data is all important. And I told you the bums rush is here, and they're going to they just force you into this condition. They need to be controlling the entirety of the globe to the most part. They're going to do it by these new toys they give us. And for the most part, those of us that are using the toys are agreeing to some extent to be within the realm of that, except that we can take steps yet to try and block it out. Well, this data becomes so important to obtain. And I said, be careful of the commercial side. The NSA is one thing. That's bad enough. But the commercial side use is going to be even worse. And then they use that commercial side in what? In what? We said it. I talked about it behind the Woodshed. It's in the document for the transformation, the Agenda 2030. It's the monitoring of the consumption side. They're going to control production and consumption. What did I say before? The city-state will control the countryside, called rural, into being serfs. They control the production for the city-state. This is the new feudal system, the current Middle Ages, as I wrote back in 1999 or so. What they call neo-feudal now. Nice scholarly sounding word. I just call it the current Middle Ages. It's where the city-state rules the countryside. And city-state's a very small place, and the countryside's a very large place. And you work as serfs. You don't have property. And you're happy to have what you have. As I pointed out, even the people in the city are happy to live in podments. So they need this data. They need you to give it to them. They need to make ways that you're not going to give it up. And sure enough, not right after this Pope thing in the UN happened in the 25th, and now they say the 29th, it rolled out. You hear it right here. I told you this was that week, that time, those 2 weeks when the Pope was here was when it opens up on us. And now we hear evidence, and the DOJ agrees. An international UN imposition is now being put on by the DOJ itself across the country for the cities to take care of you. That we now are seeing the rollout as well of the data, the forcing of data collection, where they can get it and how they can get it. Microsoft completely removes the option to opt out of Windows 10's free upgrade. You don't have a choice, folks. No, you do. For those of us that are paying attention, we do still have a little bit of a choice. But they're taking away your options. Microsoft is making the decision. Remember, they're a global governance company. They're multinational. Remember, we have heard all the stories about the founder, Bill Gates, and what he's willing to do to you. Remember, he's in that little video that says he's willing to take out some people if it means to bring the climate carbon credit down to stability down to protect Earth, the religion of Gaia. The universal religion that's now overseen by the Pope. If you haven't made the connections, folks, it's all right there for us. Absolutely predictable because they're writing it. It's been sitting there for decades to know and read. How I came through to see it. Like I said, I came through the international documents. Microsoft completely removes the option to opt out of Windows 10, which we know is a data collection sponge. So, just proof, folks. It's right here. They're moving hard and moving fast, and I don't know what more to say. Time to step up where you can. You can't make an excuse. An excuse, they win. It's that simple. An excuse you make not to act, not to work with people, they win. If you don't know what to do, contact people. Figure out those that you think have an answer and start working toward the right answer. Data is all important. So this next story came up, this is a couple weeks ago. Privacy activists has just won an enormous victory against the United States surveillance. Here's how. The European Court of Justice, Europe's highest court, has just ruled the safe harbor and arranged between the European Union and the United States, allowing for the transfer of personal data. Remember, that person's always sitting in there. That's the human that's been that's been enfranchised with civil rights, that's been enfranchised with obligations and duties. Folks, you're not free. This is personhood. Now, the corporate personhood is that entity created underneath the laws of a particular state that allows it to exist and follows the laws of that state to continue its existence. That's a legal entity as well. It's personhood. So you don't want to have personhood if you think you're free. Now, I don't know that many of us are free. We all do our best. But anytime you have one of the five powers of a sovereign diminished or interfered with, unless you can overcome that or sustain a balanced defense against somebody, you're not a sovereign. It's pretty simple. Now, something just flashed in my mind to mention. For instance, and just in a small narrow arrow, I have a mining claim with a partner. The Forest Service is a federal agency without any authority where we are, though we inhold the Forest Service Reserve, the Forest Reserve. In the law of 1897, there is a reservation in the reservation. In the creation of the forest reserves in 1891, the 1897 Act continues a reservation of the mineral estate from 1891. That mineral estate's preserved because it's not really a natural resource. And there's special people, and I don't want to call myself so special, there's people that are a lot more capable than I. There's special people that do mining. It's historic. This is just us. We just do this. We're kind of wired to do this, I guess, somehow. And this is our culture, if you will, that through history. We're tied in with people that just like to do mining. I'm not talking about the recreational. I'm talking about the people that just do it. It's their calling, if you will. That we walk in and we find a valuable mineral deposit. And there's two types. There's uncommon and common. There's not two types of valuable mineral deposit. There's two types of deposits. One's common and not valuable, and the other one's uncommon, which is. And the uncommons have right of reservation inside a forest reserve. That we go in and we make a discovery and we segregate as private property the area of land of the claim, mineral claim, away against the Forest Service authority. That when Forest Service attacked us to say you don't have these rights, I wrote a document. It ended up being a 21-page, because remember I told you make your record of the law, and in the record of the law is the law, and also their lack of law. That I made a 21-page document and sent that back to the administrative side, and I said, here, you have a whole bunch of things to answer and show how you aren't committing crimes. That it took a little bit of a time, and they still kept attacking, and I had to sue the district ranger and got him off our back and everything. That finally, after they made war against me, I went to defense. I was exercising the military power within the sovereignty, if you will, inside our land from an attack that was coming. I exercised that military right to defend ourselves as a sovereign. I was able to. We did not get overthrown, and we now maintain that land through the military power of a sovereign exercised against an invader, and they've backed off. Doesn't mean they're not going to come back and try and attack us. The point is that we maintain the economic power on that land. We maintain the military power on that land, if you will. We did it in paper. Again, we shot lead through a paper pencil, if you will, through the digital. But that's the way the war goes now. We exercise the political power. We exercise the, if you will, because it's the name of our. This was also planned as well in the past for this battle. The claim is called God's creation. So that name implies the ecclesiastic power within a sovereign. So we were able and have been until today exercising the powers of sovereignty over that inholding. Doesn't mean that we're shielded. Any attack can come. You see what happens. You get a bigger power with bigger bombs to take care of you. So there's no guarantee. But as far as I understand this, based in international law, based in international understandings, men understanding the workings of dealings of men themselves, translated to nations, and women too. Please, man in this world means women. So don't. I'm not leaving you all out. It just makes a lot more harder discussion. Got to double up the discussion. That these are just rules of objective basis of understanding that how men deal with men. Because we found out that Cain will kill Abel, we won't want to get there. That when you understand what these 5 powers, and I've implied 2 more because of the 5 implicate 2 more. And I wish I could remember that thought. That's been a long time ago I did this study for myself to understand all this. That if you can do this, if you can maintain the powers of a sovereign, you are. Now, you know every sovereign's going to go to war with somebody, even if in defense. So there's no guarantee that that's not going to happen being a sovereign. The point is, you're determinate over your locale, your land, the soil that we have. And not just land, because land can be water and that can be regulable. But soil is disposed. So anyway, getting to the point, on the ground, with the law, this personhood is very important to these technocrats. I don't even know what the name is. I've heard lots of names, folks. It's going to be something that they're going to define for us as they figure out what resistance we're going to put up. They will be moving, so I'm not so sure to put a name on this stuff. But this European Court of Justice, highest court, has ruled that the Safe Harbor Act arrangement between the European Union and the United States. Remember, this is the European Union that establishes this new rule set that the UN is implementing. Has itself said that the United States is encroaching too much on personal data. It's legally invalid. Few non-specialists have heard of the safe harbor. Even so, this ruling is going to send shockwaves through both the United States and Europe. Now, all of a sudden, Europe, not the European Union, but Europe. So what happened to all this? You see all these different entities sit there to work us over. You got to start to keep them straight. Anyway, what this does is it says that the agreements that were made by the United States did not protect the data for the people in Europe at the standard that Europe has to protect its own people. And this here's the point, and I think this was an attorney, but we'll call him a lawyer, because he did the law, and he stepped up, folks. You step up, and you challenge these things, and he was able to show that this arrangement is illegal, not unlawful. It's legally invalid. In other words, it's still in the equity jurisdiction, right? Still, they're making it up. That this arrangement violates the personal data rights of people in Europe. Should show you how bad it is for the Americans in the land of the free, so-called. That it took someone to challenge, someone to stop rubbing his legs thinking it's still the comfort of summer and the girlfriend's coming by. To get out of that comfort zone, find out that it wasn't so cool, and go to task with a system that purports to be an authority that is lawful in the world, or better than legally invalid. That this is a very big deal. This is a very big case for the standpoint of the idea that the United States of America is so far into the stinking abyss underneath this UN agenda, and so far into what people might identify as fascism, communism, socialism, all these things. You're focusing on all the wrong thing, because what they're doing is something extrajudicial. It's no lawful. It's just it's a crime against you, as I keep saying. Quit walking as an accessory to the crime against you. How many years have I been saying that? Pull the ring out, folks. For you crickets, stop thinking it's so comfortable. One day there might be a boot on your head, literally. No more cricket. But this did hit the news. Top European court rules that NSA spying makes U.S. unsafe for data. And then you got Microsoft making Windows 10 imposition that you have to take it. You got Siri in your phone, iPod phones, I think, whatever those things are. There's another one that pops up, and they're all over. Google. These systems are not safe, as declared by a European court that is in a human rights condition, that says that the human rights are only conditioned by the needs of the state. They're saying that this isn't even needs of the state when they say it. Even under diminished human rights, it was too much. Now, so for those of you that think you have unalienable rights, think again. You're only going to have the unalienable rights that you can defend and protect on your own. What I just went through, why I just talked about our Forest Service mining claim, valuable mineral estate deposit discovery claim in holding a foreign area. And we defended it in utilizing this basic hierarchy of what the powers of sovereignty are. Didn't call ourselves sovereign, we just did as sovereign. And you bet, I just said that, I have to highlight that for y'all. It's not a title, it's how you do in the world, folks. The crickets ain't sovereign. Sitting behind a keyboard only and not engaging somewhere and helping to throw this down is not sovereign. Me talking to you is not sovereign. It's when we take this information and we go put it where it is sovereign, where it's acting, it's putting its in force and effect, the power. Again, it's not in the knowledge, as I've said, it's in the what? In the proper action of it. Utilizing the application of that knowledge. That's sovereignty. You know, it's not a title. It's the other reason I keep, sovereign citizen is an oxymoron. You don't even use the word. You're either doing it or you're not. That doesn't attach to you when you're doing it. It doesn't protect you either, because a sovereign, one king will attack another king. A pirate will attack a king. If you want to say, it doesn't have to be a king coming after you. Just a pirate. But they call them privateers in the United States Constitution. If you thought that the United States Constitution showed that the United States of America was so lily white. The United States Constitution says the United States cannot enter into a piracy abolition act, because letters patent of creating privateers is piracy. So go look at your Constitution to see what was really done there. Getting back to that point, so the United States is only a political power, created as a political power with an economic servitude, shows it's not actually a complete sovereignty, even though it's got the biggest club in the world right now. It's actually set up to do that. It's the biggest club to go beat people down with. It's a tool. Does that mean that the people inside it are necessarily subject to that? Well, no, because it says right in those documents that the people are not even part of it. And those establishments are to work to the ends of the people and forget the we the people condition. You either stand up as part of that people that's going to take care of that and understand that even if it wasn't part of you, you still have a job to do, as I've told you before. It may be that we jumped across the pond and landed on the shores, but we fell as a people. Not we the people, but as a people, we fell back. We never really came onto the land. Talk about the evolutionary process interrupted. We never fulfilled what was actually promised to people. So this whole war, this government war is on you. The enemy is within the gates big time. It is the gates. It is the structure. It is your cities. It's in the people in your cities. And data is so important that Microsoft just said, we're gonna force Windows 10 on y'all. I'm still trying to figure out how they're going to get past me if I don't do my upgrades. I haven't had time to research since the power and all the electronics failed, and I've been trying to come back. There's been lots of little anomalies happening. Even today, I had some new things pop up that I had to fix that didn't happen before the power out. But I haven't had a lot of time to go research how they're going to force that on you if you don't do an upgrade. The point is that they're owning the system that's beyond your capacity. And to show you how controlling it is, another story popped up. Again, the mirror of the East European, Middle East condition is a mirror to the West. And it's really led by the West. Actually, it's guided by ZioWest. Estonia tackles improving NATO's cyber defenses. What I found just fascinating about this story, and I won't get too much longer on these things, was that in this story, they show you that if you are constrained in your activities to electronic devices and money and systems, they can turn it off. So while Windows 10 is going to be forced on you, and this system, this war of violent extremists, war that the United States government is coming against those that don't agree with it coming in, will take you out as the heretic they're already calling you. They prove in this little story from Estonia, of all places, that NATO, in improving cyber defenses, can shut you off, turn you out, isolate you, cut off your switch, and make your life miserable. It's here, folks. That little story, I was reading it, just fascinated how much we've accepted. The war is global. These people are devious to ends. It's beyond me. It really isn't. It isn't unicorn farts and rainbows. It really isn't. These people will lie and lie and lie until they have to tell the truth, and then they'll still push the lie as the truth. And we get crickets. It's really astonishing to me that I'm going to move now. Estonia, remember, this is back over there in the Eastern Bloc countries that were blown apart in the USSR, tear down this wall nonsense, which they should have. They're all just nations beating down on their own people, utilizing their people as human resources. This human animal that's now being to be controlled by science without spirituality, without moralisms. If you can get it there, I don't know what you want to put in that. You understand where they're dividing it. See, science can't prove God, can it? And so all of a sudden, underneath a humanist view, there is no spirituality. They displace it with man's religion and they throw it on this thing called Gaia as well. That's another facade. This is just to get you to believe that there's some rational order behind things, which we find out is in just the definition of IPCC, that the definition is for global warming, climate change, global warming, anthropomorphic global warming, is a statistic, statistical relationship. That then is an economic power against you. And why I say independent, self-reliance, start there, then go to your independent money, go to silver, because you know that between men and women that you can trade. You know what that is. You may not be able to put it in an electronic circuit or use silver where it belongs, but you know it has value somewhere to somebody, sometime. And it's historically accepted that you go and you start doing independent economies. So you have control of the economic power in your life to be that sovereign we're supposed to be instead of giving it to somebody else. If we tie into electronic and agree to electronic commerce transactions, you will have given over your so-called sovereignty for those of you that think you have it. This NATO war, NATO imposition to improve cyber defenses, showing you that they can turn off your electronic switch and make you a no person. Actually, you're a no body. A body? Legal entity? No body. You'll always be someone, but you'll be no body within that system, and that system is pervasive control. That we see the importance of what the global war condition and structuring is, the deception that's brought on, the questions that are brought on. Estonia, and they have the Ukraine, the invasion of the United States, overthrowing their democratic processes for the United States rule of law democracy. I've talked all about this. NATO coming in to protect it. At first we thought we would think that it was good. Oh, okay, we're going up against Russia. When we find out that the Cold War was false. It's not that the nations two kings aren't going to attack each other. That's not it. It's the story we're told about how that maybe exists or not exists. That we then start to now look at this war footing that the NATO is looking at cyber defenses in Estonia, a little nation being able to control everybody's lives, economically showing all those people in that are not sovereign. They're not self-determinate. That's the key. You see the evidence. That we also see the deception exposed. It's a really fascinating disclosure. I was talking about Putin going to attack Syria. The honesty in the clarity of why they were there, why Putin went to Syria underneath the agreement that's from Syria, exposed the lie in the United States, and Zio West, and that includes all the Saudi Arabia and all these other brutal brutes and beasts. That Brzezinski comes out and says this is the height of their mentality, of their brutishness. These are the people in the United States, the same ones that the DOJ are now going to come after, what they call violent extremists, which is anybody that is counter to what they want to impose through the UN, no doubt. Understand the connection there, folks. Your American way of life is now a crime. I would hope that a lot of you start making your noise about, and proper noise. I don't mean just noise, but I mean proper discussion, proper sending communications back to where they have to go. Don't hunker down now. But these people with this mentality are making war within. Battlefield America was no joke. Now the Americans are now going to be the violent extremists. You will be placed. Remember, you can't have your hair too short. You can't have it too long. You can't have a beard. You can't not have a beard. You can't have nice white teeth. You can't have a clear eye. You can't have a hearty handshake. You miss the one finger on your hand having that one handshake. You could be a terrorist. This is the insanity. This is the hypocrisy. This is the oxymoronism that we now live in. Brzezinski says that Obama should retaliate if Russia doesn't stop attacking U.S. assets. If you didn't think these people that are in the seats of decision right now making these governmental policies, these buffoons, aren't dangerous to the world, that was just the outward proof that Brzezinski just stated a couple weeks ago now, because I missed last week to bring it up. That Obama should retaliate if Russia doesn't stop attacking U.S. assets. He's talking about Russia attacking what Syria and Russia defines as the terrorists I told you about before. They don't make a distinction between is, and any other of the terrorists over there, moderate or otherwise. Al-CIA, or the offshoot Al-Nusra, or now there's even a new one they've invented to drop 50 million ton or 50,000 tons or something of ammunition in an open desert area, hoping the right people come and get it. The United States just did that, dropped a bunch of ammunition in the middle of nowhere. Well, it's close enough to the people they want to push. It's probably the Kurds they want to supply with this ammunition. That Brzezinski admits that moderate rebels are United States assets. Al-CIA, is exactly duh. Now, I haven't heard such a loud wave come through the medias so much about this. I saw lots of talk about it. Again, we've been talking here behind the woodshed on this stuff. I said, be careful. Watch who the players are here. Watch what comes up, what gets refined out of the heat, and what slag rises to the top. That you see the United States has, in fact, been making asset tools of attack against Assad. That was exposed when Russia decided that it was going to help Assad defend against the terrorists. The first ones to start screaming uncle was Sam. We weren't even supposed to be in there, right? They denied it up until that point. U.S. should attempt to disarm Russia in Syria, Brzezinski says. These people are lunatics, folks. Do you think that when Russia decided finally, I told you, I don't know why it didn't go in earlier. It had all the same cause. That's not for me to decide, though. They seem to be doing pretty well in just a few days. In just a week, they've really harmed the so-called moderate rebels' infrastructure, to the point that at least the news I'm getting shows that the ground troops that all of a sudden became a question. The meme in the last few days has been, Russia can't do this because it can't do it without ground troops. Well, I told you before, Russia is just coming to the aid of the ground troops. They're just the air force that Assad didn't have. Their ground troops can now focus on sweeping out the terrorists that are identified, whether they come from the United States as al-CIA, al-Nusra Front, the Free Syrian Army. I wish I could remember the new one. It's some new Syrian something coalition. It's invented. Everything's invented. They're inventing these things. They're ghosts that they want everyone to believe is going on, like there's this big deal going on. What it is, it's the United States. They want to call it a proxy war. But I don't understand how that is on the Syrian side. That's a nation protecting itself from an invasion through mercenaries. That Brzezinski says that this is the guy that made this policy. He should attempt to disarm. Attempt to disarm. That's how nuts he is. He knows it would be an attempt. It may not be successful, and he's still calling for it. This is a major psychopath. And we agreed with it. We agreed to continue to agree with it. I can go off on talk about World War III, IV, whatever the heck the number is going to be. The escalation, we know that. The point is they've agreed, and this guy continues to hold the position that they're going to stop Russia. Well, if you look at Brzezinski's past, he hates Russia. Way beyond. John McCain. Remember, it all came out that where he was going, he was meeting with these so-called people, these leaders that supposedly came from Guantanamo, that were then, once they got released, they became the leaders, the CIA, al-CIA leaders, that spin off and become if that's even real. Like this new Syrian area coalition or whatever they've invented. We don't even know. I don't think it's anything. It just is a name to justify this illegality. But McCain says the U.S. is engaged in a proxy war with Russia in Syria. They admit that the people that they've been supplying are the mercenaries, folks. They're not moderate rebels. They're United States paid mercenaries to go attack Syria, which Syria says are just terrorists. Russia agrees. They don't make a distinction. Now, I understand that they're making some adjustments. Why? Because there's always that political propaganda going on as well. The United States is whining because a lot of their infrastructure now, their assets are being blown up. But if ISIS can't be blown up, can it, if it doesn't really exist? So this is, again, we don't know that part, but we can see that when someone came in with an equalizer, the bully in the sandbox started to complain and whine and cry. But admissions come up that the U.S. is engaged in a proxy war with Russia in Syria. Is it actually with Russia? It wasn't until they stepped in and they were denying proxy war status, but is it on the side of Syria a proxy war? I think not. So that's why I decided to look at this and say, no, these are United States mercenary troops. This is a foreign army paid. That's like the French Foreign Legion in a way. It's a paid troops that the United States doesn't have to enter in, but they pay nonetheless. $500 million were told for 5 soldiers that they failed, that they didn't stop the program. This is mercenary war. Pentagon escalates hostilities with Russia. We are in a proxy war. It was I think 2 weeks ago. But is it proxy from the standpoint of Russia? I don't think so. And so this is the propaganda. This is not a proxy war with Russia. Also, all Russia's doing is being the Air Force for Assad in his rightful defense of his nation. However, he's vilified by the whining bully, the name caller, Assad's regime. No, that's his national army. And when they had proper Air Force, apparently they can start sweeping up pretty good. And I've also noticed in the rhetoric, the propaganda, a statement made that, well, there was, for the last 4 years, stalemate in the Syrian civil war, they call it. Well, if that's the case, then that was before Russia stepped in. I can very well predict that if that was that the Syrian, National Syrian Army, protecting its nation, made a stalemate from a mercenary force coming from all over the world to fight it. I think once Russia's added the Air Force power to the Syrian army to cover for the Syrian army, I think the balance of power is going to be shifting pretty quickly. That this is not truly the proxy war. This is the United States using mercenaries to attack a nation that never did anything to it. And if they wanted to, if there was some strategic or there was some geopolitical reasons why Syria was dangerous to the United States, they ought to have done something other than lie, continue the lie, and then go all in saying that we, as the United States of America, through the United States pathological machine, should go attempt to attack Russia, when it is gotten permission to defend another nation, friendly nation to it. That's not a proxy war. That if you buy into these things, it diminishes your ability to see that the government that's doing what it's doing in Syria is capable. This district over there in Washington, this little spit of land, carved out by paper, is going to do this in a place over in Syria and in the whole Middle East the way it is. It's willing to do it to you, the evidence of which is the new launching of the Strong Cities Network against you as a lie. Once it came out, they just to say, oh, we're just going to be doing this. Oh, we're going to call, these are moderate rebels, but they're our assets. Well, these extremists are Americans, but they're our enemies. Is a treason on its own. The imposition of the UN policy in the country is a treason. And I hear crickets. Now, in all fairness, we addressed a show cause to the Secretary of Interior, as I said 2 weeks ago, that we said, show cause how you're not a felon in committing treason. This is documented now. This is not just me making words like we're so big and bad and we can just talk how bad we is. No, we sent this notice back to him, show cause how you're not committing felonies and treason. Well, we get a proverbial knock on the door from the FBI. You're intimidating the government. And we explained to them, well, no, we're not, for 2 reasons. One is that given that there is law that we may be obligated to, it says right here in this 18 U.S.C. 4, that if we see a felony and we don't declare it to some law officer, that we ourselves are an accessory to that felony. We don't want to suffer that. And in state law, under state law, we have rights to arrest those that are committing crime. And so we produced the protection that required that we do what we do, as opposed to just a one-off lone wolf acting without cover of the law that most people want to denounce. And I'm telling you, it's there as the objective basis to expose them. that the answer to us wasn't to protect us. The answer was to intimidate and attack us for outing crime. That I'm telling you that this has now gone over the edge and not in some esoteric way. You need to help and step up with the rest of all of us and start actually becoming active against this nonsense. These people are willing to make war in places, deny it, then admit to make bigger war on some cause they haven't even explained to anybody, that only appears to be coming from a psychopathy. And, as I've shown you, the implementation of a global plan of governance that, in its own words, says we will create the migration of people, the human resource migration of which we will use to further control more people and parasitically pull from these people that we are migrating as a herd to how we want and why we want, all on the economic power of that control. Once someone sits in an economic power, they strip the entire world of that part of the sovereignty. Nobody can be sovereign. That's how simple this really is working down. And here's the report I was telling you. This is so absurd. This fabricated condition the United States is saying, utilizing, that they call a proxy war, which are really mercenaries being paid by the United States and Qatar and Saudi Arabia and Europe and all these other places, to fabricated to fight Syria, to take it out, for whatever reason we can see. I got lots of reasons why it could be happening. But here's how stupid this becomes. How the U.S. is not, again, the hypocrisy, the oxymoron that the United States is. Full metal retard. U.S. launches performance-based ammo paradrop program for make-believe Syrian Arabs. On Monday, the Pentagon proudly announced that it was successfully delivered 50 tons, yes, tons, of ammo to the rebels fighting the Assad regime in Syria. Assad regime, folks. No, it's the government's army. It's like, it would be like saying that the United States military, the Marines, was Obama's regime army. Well, maybe it is, actually, because he's the unqualified one, right? So, no, okay, the point is, they are denouncing that Assad is in office lawfully by their laws. They're externally imposing something that doesn't really exist either, in saying Assad's regime, which is replicated by this website that I'm reading from. So there's a prejudice built into the article as well. However, 50 tons, folks, of ammo was dropped in Syria to a make-believe group. Think about that, folks. Think about what this country, the United States, is willing to do. I want you to focus on a bit of this. They're doing it to you here in the United States itself. If you think that they're just fighting, and their focus is on Syria, and that's all, and these techniques are only used on Syria, you're really missing it. You're really missing it. The strong cities launched to go after what people that these psychopaths consider are extremists, counter to the UN community. Folks, listen. Anyone counter to the UN community is an extremist, by whatever label. You are missing the fact that this launch declares war on you through your cities. As well as there was I don't have it on the board, it just reminded me that the same DOJ is now going to fortify the local police in the same capacity. That came out just weeks before as well. I forgot to bring that up. That once Russia jumped in to be air support for Assad's army, the national army, and the truth started to rise to the top, the slag, the lies, the dark nonsense that came up to purify the situation. Once Putin stepped in and started to hit whoever they considered to be a terrorist, the truth came out. So also did Israel admit it's supporting al-CIA and is in Syria. Notwithstanding, we don't know if is real. So I find, regardless of whether I put Putin in anywhere, and Russia in anything, their intervention to help Assad has caused the heat to cause a purification, and the garbage comes floating to the top. That everything that we've been talking about as conjecture is fulfilled in their words, where we see that Israel admits to supporting al-Qaeda. And now you have this whole position. Now put your mind over in the land, and you start seeing the connecting of why the moderate rebels were being cared for by Israel in Israel hospitals, and then Israel was taking that as a great humanitarian gift to the world. We'll give you the idea how these people play this. They're brilliant. But it doesn't mean it's right. But it also means that we have to then now see the truth, and it's not conjecture. This is just not some theory, some idea. Some Nibiru is going to blow us out of this space but tomorrow. The next asteroid's coming down to take us out. The end of the world at September 25th. None of that. This is from them. And behind the Woodshed, we've been saying that. Not the only place, certainly. There's been a few that have an eyeball on this. But not enough to actually cause, and maybe to my fault, not to be able to rally the troops around these truths sufficient to throw off this hypocrisy, this nonsense, this crime, this felony, this treason against the people of the United States and the world, essentially. Why? Because we see now DOJ admits it's a UN policy started at the same week. I told you, be careful, man. This Pope coming in is going to be doing a whole new thing, and it's a new bum's rush. They're running for the doors. They're going to take you down to do it. They see the light. Why? The crickets. The hypocrisy of the United States not doing anything for a year. It's kind of the same hypocrisy the crickets do in the United States, being attacked by mercenaries underneath this UN agenda that these last few weeks now gets exposed to us down to our cities, folks. To understand why they go to the cities, it's the city-state control. The hypocrisy of this whole condition. A year of the United States, the biggest and baddest military in the world, working for a year to oust is Russia goes in a couple weeks and it starts to clean things up pretty quickly. You'd think that the United States want to up its game a bit, you think, if it was true that they're after. The news comes in consistent with the hypocrisy that this unqualified one shows us is the trick, the symbol that he was, I told you I predicted years ago. As Russia bombs U.S. bombs Syrian civilian power stations. And might I add, hospitals, folks. And then the cover-up. Why is it that the United States starts bombing and Uncle Sam starts whining, and the first thing Uncle Sam does in retaliation is to go bomb civilian power stations and hospitals? What sense are we making of this? And folks, if you got sense of this, and I don't mean to further the stupidity, I mean, what if you were doing this legitimately? What sense does that make? It's not in me to understand. Mark on the beast@yahoo.com. If you can write me a short note on an email, explain this to me. Why would you, under the heat of the magnifying glass, now you haven't done anything for a year, to stop the very entity you say it exists and needs to be stopped? Once the next bully comes in to stop that bully, for those people there, would you go and beat up the little girl in the swings and then kick the baby in the stroller? Why would you do that? But that's happening. That's what happened. This is your government in the United States, folks. This is your government that's now turned its attention to make strong cities against you. Why? And these people are in those cities to do it, folks. You can put any regime, any government, any tyranny of any government in the history that's called tyranny on people. The government, the DOJ just announced it. This is the United States government's DOJ just announced the same tyranny down to the cities. why you should become vocal local, as Mr. William Roberts was telling you, as I've been telling you, as I've been working to do through what we call coordination and the creation of Jefferson Mining District to give us a governmental power to be there, to be the witness and the voice. And I won't have time, but we did our comment on that water. I just want to comment on this because it just hit me to say, in this power, you get to be the voice that outs the problem, outs these criminals. We made a comment to this Waters of the United States thing, and it went to a court case, and it's on my tabs. I won't get to it. But this Waters of the United States decision, because people stepped up with the proper application of what that was supposed to do in that rule, stopped it nationwide. It's still a thing we can do yet. But it takes us doing something to counter it, to stop it, literally put it in its place. Crickets ain't gonna do it. Crickets in fur coats overwintering, nice little warm, decaying matter heat from microbes in the soil, you putting little earmuffs on your cricketness, isn't going to do this. In fact, winter is here. It's kind of fun. I'm waiting to see. A lot of miners are coming out of the forest now because it's maybe because they're just not the old miners of old, but they're coming out of the forest for whatever reason. They're now coming and they're actually saying, now we can help, which is fine. I'm hoping so. Same as you folks. Come out of the forest, come out of your dens, come out from behind your keyboards. We as a people need to step up. We need to find the common idea of each other. Certain people are wired certain ways. Certain people can work together. We need to find those for ourselves. I can't talk to a lot of people. I actually can't. Even though I have a broadcast, I try to talk to lots of people. I don't communicate well with a lot of people. I only communicate with, I think, a few that really have a root understanding of what this is. Regardless of it's fully understood or not, there's a root understanding that I can talk to those people that can talk to other people, and those other people that can talk to people, they can talk to a much wider audience than I can, that I realize my place is not trying to talk to a wider audience. I have found a better place, I think, to be. And with that, I can talk with more that I can talk to 5, and those 5 can talk to 5,000. Where if I tried to talk to 5, where they do, I'd only talk to the 5, not the 5,000. And so we do what we can where we can, and I'd say find your best place, because we're all going to need to be to be doing what we do best, whatever that ends up being. This whole global conundrum, I mean, it's a hypocrisy, and the world has become an oxymoron. I mean, like I said, heavy on the moron. In face of the fact that they're telling us exactly what they're doing to make it that. That I was telling you before, this whole, like, strong cities, all this UN nonsense, it's not really nonsense at the point of hurting you, but I mean, it's nonsense at the point of being a reality. It'll be your reality because you'll let other men and women beat you down. That's what's going to happen. Cain is coming to kill Abel. Cain is coming to kill the innocent, folks. And blaming Abel for that. My view, my opinion, the way it makes sense to me, maybe not yours, makes sense to me. They're imposing a responsibility on you that doesn't exist. They're imposing an impossibility on you as well, thinking that it's reality, and it's not. Saying that reality is only the narrow blinded condition that those people that have fabricated that conceive of. When people that are not in it look in and say, but the blinders you set up don't recognize the sun exists. But that's the other illusion. That's the tool. Because I've told you this is the economic construct. All this time it's an economic control. If they take away what people utilize in their interactions as a medium of exchange, then if you cut and control that exchange, there will be none, that none can be a sovereign. This is what they're after. IMFs, I want to remind you of this. We've been talking about the sustainable development, the strong cities. It's in your cities now. It's already in your states. I've told you, all the legislation's there. It can all be thrown out, but they won't do it with crickets. But I want to remind you that this is how powerful this thing is focused on the economic construct. I want to remind you, it came out again. We reported on it a while back, but it came out again. IMF's managing director, Christine Lagarde, on how to implement the Sustainable Development Goals. The Sustainable Development Goals are the SDGs we were talking about in the Agenda 2030 that's being implemented since the 29th in earnest. To be made a treaty here in Paris. They're really focusing on this treaty. It's almost like a foregone conclusion. Why you need to step up, for as much as it seems useless to call your senators and your congressmen out that felony against us, out the treason it would be for anyone in office to agree with it. Find out how to say that, why to say it, and say it in writing to somebody that purports to be your representative. We need to rattle the cages here. We need to buy more time. I don't know how long it's going to take. I'm astonished at how long it's been taken. I certainly didn't expect the crickets, but there they are. Those of us that aren't the crickets, we're going to have to roll the sleeves up even farther up, I guess. But these Sustainable Development Goals, which they actually branded like a marketing campaign, as global goals, is really coming out of the IMF, the economic power of the world. People now have relied upon economic power instead of finding it within themselves. Understand this. This is why I say you have to find this stuff in yourself. We have to work with each other to find this in ourselves. The United Nations formally adopted on February 25th the Sustainable Development Goals. The SDGs are a set of 17 goals aimed at lowering global poverty, hunger, and the inequality of addressing environmental challenges. Remember, Goal 17 was sustainable debt to all people, all human resources. Human is a legalism. Human has no spiritual base. It's a monster. And these people deal with you as a monster. I've told you this over and over and over. These people think they're not monsters. They are given the divine right to rule over the monsters, the domain, all the animals. It's a false religion being placed upon you, the mantle of which was just taken by the Pope under his universal nature. And they claim to go after poverty by defining poverty as something just below what they're going to provide, which is livable wage, which is a bowl of rice, a roof over your head, and a communal kitchen to make your bowl of rice in a stack-em-a-pack-em house. That it all comes from the development funds from Goal 17. That's, you see, a vicious circle of servitude on the world. That ahead of the United States Sustainable Development Goals Summit, where the SDGs were adopted, the Global Economy and Development Program of Brookings hosted International Monetary Fund Managing Director Christine Lagarde for a discussion on the IMF's role in implementing the post-2015 development agenda. What did we read that was? Goal 17, sustainable debt. Your required obligation and duty to contribute to a prosperity, a shared prosperity. I told you the war in Syria tied to is just another tool to get the herd to migrate. The migrants of which they would use underneath this Agenda 2030. It's already working. It's been working when they started to attack Syria and any other place in the Middle East. Notwithstanding whether or not these are just different forms of genocide and I don't know, there's all kinds of reasons why it could be. Natural resources underneath it, just geopolitical control. It doesn't matter. The agenda is being fulfilled. The agenda is being fulfilled in the United States. It all came out of the same week. I don't know what to say. I'm speechless right now. I want to beat my chest and pound my drum, folks. I've been telling you, but it's not that. It's not that I could tell you it was coming. That was the sad part. It's now come and gone, and they're bums rush, folks. You're going to get run over if you don't step up. And it's as close as your cities. That's the good news I get. It's as close as your cities. They brought the fight to you. I've told you this is a target-rich environment. Where I could conceive we could enter into the battle, we did, as best as I can understand it. Was it perfect? I don't know. It's the only thing I understand to do. Can you help? You're going to have to if you don't want this, the people talking about controlling every aspect of people's lives. And I think in the nearer future, then maybe even I conceived. And why? It's probably because they have the plan. They have the plan that they're going to fulfill. And they don't have a plan B, actually. Well, they have different grades of plan A, but not really a plan B. This is a winner, okay? This is a winner if you don't step up. United States, the top climate official, says the goal is to intentionally transform the economic development model. Did you know there was a global model? These people are that far thinking? This was stated back in February, well before. I was telling you this then. It's coming, folks. Here's all the keys. The clues are on us. All wrapped around this facade, this thing, this boogeyman. Maybe a boogie woman. I don't know. The United Nations top climate change official says the United Nations goal is to intentionally transform the economic development model in place since the Industrial Revolution was exactly what was said by the climate chief, so-called, that IMF's Lagarde just agreed is going to happen and happening, actually. She said this in February. I told you, watch out, folks. It's right here. They got the thing in place. They're telling you the future if you don't step up. United Nations climate chief, we're intentionally transforming the world economy. What did the Agenda 2030 do on the UN page? Transforming the world. They say it, folks. It's all the same source. The same source the DOJ just referenced absolutely in a strong city's imposition on your life. Oh, I live in the county. Well, you're going to be the worst imposed. You're the rural serf, so don't think it doesn't affect you. In fact, I'm the rural serf if I was to agree with that, because of where we are behind the woodshed. But so we've been in the battle now. So if you're an urbanite in a city or in an urban growth boundary, or in one that's going to an annexation area, you should have already been seeing and feeling this and being into it yourself. You'll probably be the last to see and hear it. But us in the rural, us country folk, we've been suffering it the whole time. In fact, I don't have it on my tabs, but the area I live in has been designated, close by, has been designated the 9th poorest place in the nation. It's surrounded by natural resources, surrounded by minerals, which I don't consider natural resources because it's only a source, minerals. They come out of the ground, they're gone, till Mother Nature replenishes that spot if it will. It's not a resource. So we're surrounded by wealth. No different than Alaska. So their people get dividends for the amount of oil they sell. Their people, from the natural resource, they get paid because it's profitable to do so. And it's part of the people's land. And so they should get return, and they do. This place is surrounded by wealth that can't be touched because of the very principles I'm telling you about that we've been fighting about. We've been in the war before it hits the cities because the cities are the protected place that is being intentionally transformed. The world economy, folks. This is back again in February. They were telling us what the IMF just spoke to. Now, I have this link here I'm going to go to, but I can't remember why, and I didn't have the time to go back to look with everything, trying to keep up with all the little nuances and problems that have crept up since the power failed and some equipment. My equipment was fine, however, but there was some other equipment that I rely on that wasn't. And I have a document I'd like to present for the blogcaster. It says the Third National Environmental Policy Plan. It was referenced in another document that I can't find. I thought it was in one of these two documents I just spoke about. But this is from the Netherlands. And why this became important is because the Netherlands has adopted all of this a while back. And why it's important to the United States, and why I think it's important, is remember, as I talked to you earlier in this first hour, I said the United States Constitution is only of a political power establishment, not a sovereign establishment having the 5 powers, but only a political establishment which was imposed with an economic power servitude in Article 6. Remember? The debt that sits there, that I have not found any proof that it's been paid, from way back when, was to the Netherlands. And that the condition of the engagements in Article 6 were commercial compact engagements between the time of the Declaration of Independence and the signing of the Constitution, so-called, and the establishment of that, which establishes everything that everybody believed as the United States that we've done on everything from, was to the Netherlands. That when I see the Netherlands, I told you before, I'll just make a little passing comment in the past, that's very interesting that the Netherlands is involved. In this case, it's very interesting the Netherlands is involved again and on an economic commercial basis. That they have the standard there that this National Environmental Policy Plan speaks to, which they say the United States doesn't have, notwithstanding the National Environmental Policy Act. What the problem with that actually is for this imposition is the National Environmental Policy Act makes a balance in favor of mankind's environment and doesn't put that subject to government regulation. In other words, land is protected because that's production. It's outside of the environmental constraints. This is what I'm telling you about the four points of support for this nation. Wasn't just the establishment of the executive branch and the legislative branch and the judicial branch, and not even the administrative, because the administrative is outside of this. It was that soil disposed by the government to people to be protected by the government then, forever, was the basis of your production that is under attack. That this is another plan. If you want to see what an environmental plan that we're working to, the plan is there for us to see. That transform 2030, transforming our world. I've been reading from it. That's why I started reading from it. The Agenda for Sustainable Development is what Lagarde just brought up. As I told you, sustainable development, they're talking about their role in implementing sustainable debt on everybody in the world, you human resource animal. The mantle of which has now been claimed by the Pope as a universal imposition, as you see is stated in the documentation, that the DOJ is saying going to be implemented as strong cities networking to go after the extremists that don't like this. That the Pope comes up right in this time when they're having their synod over there of the family. What about a bunch of supposed celibate people are dealing in the family is another oxymoron to me. They've been doing this for over a week. I just check in, I see it's still going on, I don't read more about it. I've read a little bit about it, but not a lot, I don't want to talk too much. But during that time, the Pope comes back up. He wants to talk about how magnanimous what they're doing is. He says, the Pope to the missionaries of the Catholicism war on the world is that the missionaries need to learn to look like Jesus. If you don't think there's a big shuck and jive going on, look like Jesus, and everything's okay. But that's the whole point. Look like Jesus. It's all illusion, folks. He's telling us right here, this is not more than what they can get you to believe by the show, by the act, by the stage play, by the movie, by the next ad. Learn to look like Jesus. Well, some studies I've been doing, they better start wearing face black or something, because Jesus may not be who we were told. There's others that don't believe that Jesus is the myth. That's why I jumped. I said, forget all that nonsense. There's an evil in the world. What's your choice? Choose ye this day which side you're going to be on. This guy that asks you to look like Jesus? Or are we going to start exampling at least what we were told was Jesus? look like Jesus from the Pope is exactly what Catholicism has done to worship the creation and make the illusion that it was the intercessor for something that's outside of our power in this world, that is playing out in front of our eyes. That he came up to say, look like Jesus. It's not funny, but it's these jokes in the world. These oxymorons, heavy on the moron, that is the joke, the truth inside the joke. Don't example Jesus. Don't recognize him, because we can't, because we have priests that do the crucifixion, every time when we give the flesh. Think about these people, these cannibals. Give you the flesh and the blood, a continuing sacrifice like it never got done. We look like Jesus. I thought he just said that the cross was no good last week. Then why does he use the broken cross? Folks, there's symbols all around us telling us that the words out of his mouth tell us even more. Learn to look like Jesus. Like that fixes it all, folks. But that's all it is. It's an illusion. Not the substance, the illusion. You get to buy into it if you want, or you get to start calling it out. At one point, I'm shocked. I look at this stuff, I'm shocked. At the other point, I'm laughing, and not in a funny laugh, but I'm laughing anyway because I'm saying I could not have said it better than the Pope himself telling his so-called missionaries to look like Jesus. Don't example Jesus. Don't try to fulfill what we're told the better part of all that was. No, just look like it. And that's good enough. And this is what they're doing. They're just looking like it's good enough. Oh, we're going to stop hunger. We're going to stop poverty. I'm not telling you we're going to impose mortgages on your life forever. And sustainable debt to someone like Lagarde to implement a tax upon you to go help other people be brought into enfranchisement and servitude to civilize you, you heathen animal. Go look up the word enfranchisement, folks. You'll see it right there. It means freedom. It means liberty. It isn't being free. It's being brought into a constraint. The foundational premise of which is everything outside of what we say is barbarism, heathenism, animalism. It's not the truth, but that's what they say. Well, I tell you, enfranchisement is like enslavement. They just put it in a pretty bow. They just made it look like it wasn't. They took the box they put you in, and they put pretty pictures on the inside. And then they tell you, when they close the lid, don't go for the light. And everybody inside the boat look like Jesus. If that isn't the epitome in such a short phrase of what you're watching outside of what you think is an ecclesiastical power, you're missing the show, folks. This is actually kind of cool. I'm getting kind of excited. I look at this stuff, I said, it's right here. What a joke we've been buying into. What a fraud. How easy these people are to find out. And yet, look how devastating they are and have been and will be. How servile people have become is fascinating as well. I don't know. Maybe my nature. I always see these dualities. I'm horrified at one level, and I'm just excited and fascinated at the other. It's just like an ongoing social experiment somehow. Only I see the problem. If the social experiment, I see the experimenters, the scientologists get their way. I get sucked into the whirlpool too, don't I? And so will you. That we talked about the heresy, this internal problem that strong cities, you become a violent extremist because you don't agree with the government standard that is coming from a UN source. See, there's no untangible thing here. They're all connected now. If the DOJ hadn't referenced the UN, you wouldn't know it was coming from them. But they didn't leave that as a question now, did they? No, you know that this thing is coming through the implementation of the UN's agenda. That the people that are counter to that will be the extremists that I told you the reports were coming out leading into this. that anybody that comes quiet against this, like the so-called climate deniers, will be heretics to this universal religion. Fabricated humanism and humanization of nothing. That it's coming into the vernacular of the heresy will be in law. That there was a double-edged sword coming here. I noticed a few weeks ago that the Associated Press wants reporters to stop calling people climate deniers. The Associated Press style guide is a kind of Bible for many in the media, and there are plenty of journalists will tell you that they have become so indoctrinated in its rules that they write everything from the emails to text in AP style. If you didn't think the journalists were controlled. If you don't say it the way they want, you won't get your publication. The same thing with doctorates. No, I don't have one. And I think a lot of what I decided was because I understood this before I went to go waste my time with one. If you are going from a master's to a doctorate, and you sign on to do a doctoral type of teaching and be underneath a professor, if you don't state in your thesis the way the system wants you to state, you won't get your doctorate. I know that from two people who were in it. I know that from one paper, at least, I saw that did not fit the academic agreement that was denounced and threatened the one who wrote it with expulsion from that program if they didn't change it. That this is the same thing for your media. So the AP makes changes, so it's recommendations about a highly covered topic like climate change. Plenty of people will be talking about it. So you see the propaganda, the advertisement, and the acceptance by people to remouth and restate and rethink the things they're told. This is a fascinating article, actually. Yet the AP made a change to how it recommends its reporters and editors describe the people we've been calling, quote, climate change deniers or, quote, climate change skeptics. In fact, the AP doesn't recommend either of those terms, but instead favors climate change doubters or those who reject mainstream climate science. Won't read more. They're changing the dialogue. I don't quite know why, except that that's what they're going to be crucifying people over when it finally comes down through strong cities. They're changing the terminology. Climate change deniers or climate change skeptics is going to be excised for the purpose of propaganda. At the same time, the World Court, these people are writing now, the propaganda push, the bums rush is on. The World Court should rule on climate science to quash skeptics, says Felipe Sands. I told you this implementation is this bums rush from all dimensions, all sectors, promoting the implementation and denouncing everybody that's going to be an extremist to their view against them. That when you hear the DOJ and the strong cities going after the extremists, knowing it's coming from the UN, which pushes these people like this, and you don't see the threat to you when I'm suggesting to you we found in 2013 that the judges are already involved, and the 2001 documentation I read to you that says that the Bar Association and the judges and all these attorneys and these law schools are already been involved, that this becomes a serious threat, that the DOJ becomes a serious threat, because we're going to show us a report here. I think I can quickly get to it. Maybe not. That the judges are already they've decided that they're going to essentially crucify deniers to climate change. This thing that doesn't recognize the sun and only is a statistic. For the bean counters, obviously. For what? Goal 17, your sustainable debt, servitude to the mortgage in your life against the world. The World Court should rule that climate scientists are to quash skeptics. The World Court, that's a questionable place as well. The top international lawyer made climate change illegal and silenced skeptics forever. This all came out right after this thing happened in September 25th to the 29th, the Pope-a-dope and all this other stuff. Debate no more. Jailed for science dissent. 20 climate scientists, including top UN scientists, call for RICO investigation of climate skeptics in letter to Obama. Maybe you should write your letter to show how insane all this is. Why don't you learn enough to have a better word in your mouth, and you have to counter these. And here it is, because I'm running out of time. Judges plan to outlaw climate change denial. These are just three headlines I've read here, 4 red headlines. You see the progression of the implementation of what we read in the resolution of the House of Delegates of the Bar Association, that they're going to impose and implement, and where appropriate, see there's nothing inappropriate, where appropriate, impose this condition that the DOJ, a bunch of attorneys, a bunch of lawyers, saying that strong cities will go after extremists underneath UN control and guidance should terrify you. And I don't mean into inaction. I mean, you better step up. That it might be, we might think that a semi-secret international conference of top judges held at the highest courtroom in Britain to propose that it should be made illegal for anyone to question scientific evidence for man-made global warming was odd enough to be worthy of front-page coverage. Well, it wasn't. But here it is. It's what I talked about behind the woodshed. That they are coming stealthily and already inside the system. And I just want to say it again. In 2013, when we engaged, again, we went and engaged the institution of the establishment of a state government in its legislative capacity, we engaged it with comments. I've never done that before, so this is a lesson, a learning curve, a massive learning curve as well. Didn't stop. We just kept answering these things, realized the condition, realized it was a fix. The fix was in there as well as the fix is in everywhere. That condition of the implementation, notwithstanding the requirements of the obligations and duties and the inherent powers of each branch to check itself to maintain its constitutional authority, was breached. We identified that. We identified who done it. That our lawsuit that precipitated from that violation sued the attorneys, then the Bar Association, through the Solutions Network, as I told you at the beginning of this. It actually exposed the federal judge as being part and parcel to the problem, who was a party to our case by the equitable standard that we applied for injunction, that exposed these judges have already been doing this. If you just think this is a news article, that it doesn't mean anything. If you don't think you're behind the 8 ball, and this is a very hard and difficult thing to work through, it takes a little bit of thought to work after these guys. You need to get in the game to see what this is, see what the game is, so that you can bring your best game. If this is a game at all. This is a war. You need to be better prepared. I'm asking you to step in. It's over, folks. This is coming on us. You won't be able to do much of anything when you think the seat's of decision. Everybody around the seat of decision thinks it's an authority. You don't get that right word, the proper word in your mouth. It at least stalemates the problem. If it doesn't, overthrow it. I'm asking you for yourselves, folks. Save yourselves. Save your little ones. Save those in your future. Save your friends' future. Save those that don't understand. And as you do, be the example. Don't look like Jesus. Example Jesus. Care for those around you. Don't submit to Cain. Or the Cain. I don't know what more to say. I wish I could just shut up right there and not have to say more and know that everybody stopped listening to me when I told you to go do something and you turned me off and went to do it. I wish I knew that. I don't think so. I don't know why we do this. We do this, allow this to ourselves. We walk as that accessory to the crime against us. Let's stop doing that. Thank you very much for tuning in today. Appreciate that you tuned in. And again, if you can, donate as you will to these support the servers and the websites that provide the ability for my voice and my broadcaster to be reallibertymedia.com, where Grimner does the website, and where we hail out of over there at ucy.tv. Where I've got a place slot here on every Sunday, thanks to Jules, and then the servers coming out of worldtruth.org, a social network you can join up with. That provide us the ability to get out to all y'all, however many there are, however many few. That's commercial free in all of your AM, FM broadcasts. Thank you very much. Take care.
Well, that's another lesson. I hope with today's information you can take it to those that misbehave. From behind the woodshed, leaving his mark on the beast, This is Hal Anthony. Till next time, journey with purpose.
So that's what opening up a can of whoop-ass feels like.
Son, you just opened a whole case of whoop-ass.